Wow. Okay. Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. As I mentioned, so this is what I call the Junior Jumpstart. It is the junior presentation that I sort of time up right at this point of the year. I know it's not ideal because tomorrow is the end of school, but at this point in the game, nothing's really ideal as far as taking breaks anymore. So for the time that your junior is as old as they are, for the summer that's coming up and the fall that comes after, the adventure isn't just school anymore. It's college. So just to give you some context, every single junior English class, with the exception of one, heard this from me live, and then one had a recording. Timing was a little off. So hopefully this isn't news to them, but as you can hear, I apologize. I speak fast. I think fast. I talk fast. So I'm trying to do this to make you feel better, but inadvertently I end up panicking people. So hopefully they've got enough information from me to make themselves feel better. But if not, that's why I do like to redo it now in the evening. So for anybody else who wants to hear, have their questions re-answered, listen to my same story again, address individual questions in the chat, both during the presentation or after, whatever you need. Ideally, we'd be doing this together in person in the cafeteria, but you know, we're getting there. We're getting there. So we will meet again as senior parents in the beginning of September, where I go over the components that are notable at the time in September, including financial aid. So for now, I want to cover, and I apologize ahead of time, it takes a while. So if you have to turn off, go get dinner. It is recording, and you can watch it at your leisure at some other point on the YouTube channel that I'll send out the link to down the road. But it is pretty lengthy because I don't want to give you everything at one time. I want to give you the information that's pertinent at this exact moment. It's just, unfortunately, at this moment, there's quite a bit. So we will cover tonight everything from the timeline on what's supposed to happen now to the applications, and then we'll touch on financial aid, not the specifics of it, because it doesn't make sense just yet. As I tell the kids, I want you to know what to expect, but it makes no sense for me to start going over everything from, you know, the filling out the FAFSA, what button to hit, you know, what student loans mean and work study percentages, if you aren't able to do that just yet. But I want to talk about it so that we do meet again in September and it makes more sense because you will be doing it at that time. You'll at least have a better understanding of where we're going with this. So with that said, then Junior Jumpstart, let's do it right. Okay. All right. So first and foremost, please make yourselves familiar with the Terra site more now than ever before. It really is the basis for all of the information that we try to send out, from at this point Zoom links to, you know, dates coming up as we get back to school next year with events on campus. It's the best way, the most updated way for everybody to have access. Specifically, my college advising tab is what I live and die for. So I'm updating this sucker all the time. Anytime I have any piece of new information, we'll see in a few minutes, and I'm going to talk about it ad nauseum, something called Scoir. It's a new account from this year that Dade County Public Schools started. That's actually a life changer. So a lot of what I'm able to discuss tonight is going to be through Scoir, but in the meantime, I back up everything on that college advising tab, especially for the younger students who may not be as familiar or ready to talk about college planning. So first and foremost, please tab that. This is what it looks like. It's just another link on the college advising site. And I have everything there from timelines by grade level. So most of you should be familiar with that. In January of every year, I do meet with the grades to go over what they should be doing at that point during that year. So the last I met with your juniors before this latest presentation was in January, when Ms. Valls, the counselor, went through their college, their classes, the idea of what college is. I went through a lot of the components they should be doing at that point in the year, but it's listed there. I've also dropped it into their Scoir accounts. That second tab is actually pretty important, frequently asked questions. And this is because as they start completing applications over the summer, even though officially school isn't really open, the counselors, the teachers aren't here, I understand that this isn't a job that stops in June and starts up again in August, nor is it a job that ends at 2:20. So it's, I don't want to say it's a 24/7 job, because it's not, it's really a 25/8 job. But I don't want students to feel uncomfortable or nervous about completing something if they don't have me staring over them. So I really try my hardest to keep that link as available with, as updated with available information as possible. And that includes questions on the application that they may not realize they have to answer. And that's things from, like, how large is the senior class? What is your cumulative GPA? Stuff that they may get stumped on. So I really try to itemize by question what an application might look like. And I update it constantly as I see the applications are updated. So that's where you'll find that type of information. As I mentioned, we'll talk about financial aid toward the end of this. But this is where I keep the links, just so you don't have to go searching for them. Local scholarships, again, we'll talk about, but I update them as I see them, as I receive them. So those are among the features that the college advising tab has, hopefully to help you get through all of this together. But Scoir, let's go to that. So Scoir is a brand new, to us, not to the world, but to us, platform that Miami-Dade County somehow secured. It's been around for a long time. If anybody's familiar with the private school server, it's called Naviance. Scoir is very similar to that. So much of the country's been using it, but it's a paid application. It's free for us, of course. So somehow Miami-Dade was able to secure the license. And though this was not the ideal year to start using something brand new in light of everything else, we did. And I cannot speak highly enough. It has saved lives. It is able for us to plan colleges, search them. You can compare. We can talk about financial aid. It directs communication. Either way, what I'm getting at is, yes, it's another account that you and your son or daughter have to create, but it's not me suggesting it. It's me telling you, you have to do this. It's required if they're going to go to college, and this is Tara, so they will. So you have to have this account. And like I said, it does all kinds of things, from searching for schools. So tonight, as I'm going to talk about how to come up with your college list, the ideas to look for. When I just say college, search college lookups, which means you can click on the links, the social media sites of hundreds and hundreds of colleges in the United States and beyond, so that you can see more than just a highlight or a summary feature. A scattergram, which sounds fancy, but I'll show you an example of that shortly. It's awesome. It's a plotted graph that takes our kids, our Tara kids, not the rest of the world, not the ones who just go to UF, but our kids, completely anonymous, no names, no ID numbers, and it tabs them as their GPAs, their test scores. So you could see, for example, if you wanted to apply to Florida State next year, you can click on the kids, again, completely anonymous, and see the ones who did get in, what their stats were, and the ones who didn't, what their stats were. So it's great to see what a school wants, but it's even greater to be like, but at our school, this is my competition, or the ones that were able to get in. And if I'm not in that realm, then what do I have to do to get there? So it's really, really cool. And every year, the new classes will just add to that. Use Science. Oh, I suggest some of you take that too. I've done it a couple times. I'm not going to lie. It's a career and interest quiz. It's not a quick 20-30 minute thing. It takes an hour or two-ish, and then it spits out anywhere from a 3 to 5 page analysis of what you should be doing for your career. It can be vague or specific. It suggests schools and majors that would match that. It's not really cheesy questions like, I want to pull over a bad guy. It doesn't get specific. They're very general, and they take those answers and sort of create a number of careers that may be of interest to you or your child. One thing I tell them at this point, I know they're juniors, I know we're talking about college, but please, I don't want 16 and 17-year-olds to be panicked, feeling like, I don't know what I want to do yet. I get it. It's okay. It's okay. We do have time, I promise. You even have time in college for the most part. We'll talk about how that works in a little bit. But Use Science is a Scoir feature that helps sort of minimize that a little bit, or at least give them ideas. And what I tell the kids is, I know you might not know what you want to do yet, but you definitely know what you don't want to do, if that makes sense. So you've got a list of things that you would hate to do. So believe it or not, that's a really good start on narrowing down your career. So Scoir is a place to do that as well. But the biggest thing that I love about Scoir that's a game changer is the communication tool. It's an individual messaging from either me to a large group, you just back to me. So now we can send out messages as a school talking about anything from Jean's days to me dropping in individual college suggestions or scholarships to you and your child alone. So gone are the days, thankfully, of you having to search through hundreds and hundreds of scholarships on these giant websites, where instead now, based on a series of questions that they answer, I can tailor them to you. So now I could be like, here's one, this is great for you, do this one, do this one. I can sort of stalk, not a very good word, if they're following up on them, deadlines. So the communications feature is huge. It sends push notifications to your your phone. You're able to set up whatever email you use, so it's not going to some antiquated email that you set up when you first enrolled your kids in kindergarten. So that's pretty amazing. These are some really cheesy quick screenshots. It's very user friendly. It's fun to play around with, I promise. So I don't want you to roll your eyes and think, oh no, another site, what is this? It really, really is amazingly helpful. So all but 12 juniors thus far have a Scoir account, and I've been stalking those 12, so hopefully they'll be able to. I've been inviting them for the past 2 years. They have to create the account first, and then they can invite you, or you can add your email to it. And I encourage the kids to do that. It's one thing to have me breathing down their necks about college. They'll have their teachers. The last thing they want is additional parent help going, what about this? Don't you have this tomorrow? But I beg them, please, this is the time in your life. You need all the support you can get. We're all trying to help you. So the more involvement with love, the better. So the kids should all be part of it at this point. One thing to qualify though, it's not how you apply. It is not an application. We'll see how tedious applications are, but this isn't a way to apply to a college. The kids are going to apply to a college. However, that college wants that application, and they're all different. They're all different. This is the backup behind it. It's for documentation and it's for planning. So that's a big deal, which is why it's required. We're zooming right through this. All right. Oh, gosh, I don't think I introduced myself. So I'm Miss Vivian. I'm the college advisor. Hopefully I'm not a new face to most of you. Unfortunately, I'm not as common of a face anymore since we've all been, sort of sequestered over the last year. So I'm excited to kind of get back to whatever safe and normal is. But my office is smack in the front of the school. I joke about saying that because I always say I think I have the best office, not to brag, but because I've got windows right in front of me. I can see almost the entire school. And so it works to my benefit as I'm sitting here looking at the windows on my zillion screens, typing up a letter on behalf of someone or finding a scholarship or going, wait a minute, he didn't come to that one visit. And I could run out and grab him. So I love my office for the location of what my job is. The other thing is it's an open door here. I never, ever have it closed. I'm here early. I stay late. I eat lunch. I eat a sandwich at my desk with kids in front of me. So it's as soon as they can find me as best they can. And now Scoir simplifies it quite a bit. I'm here for them. So I say that because it's very difficult to make appointments per se, since there's only one of me and there's, 400 seniors, 400 juniors. And oftentimes they'll make appointments during classes, honors or AP classes at this school that isn't best for them to get out of. So if their teacher sends them down all day, I'll send them a pass back. I'll welcome them with open arms and we can chat all day long. Oftentimes kids will come and sit and eat lunch in the office just to eat here and hear the line of questions come in because they're oftentimes very similar. So that's why I'm pretty proud of Scoir, because it'll hopefully alleviate the fears that the kids have. All right, so very quickly, I'm going to review the junior timeline. I say quickly because it doesn't matter anymore. That's old. That's what we finished with your students in January saying, you're there, right? We're doing these things, right? We're going to move on this presentation today reviewing these senior timelines. But all of these have been dropped into Scoir and they're also available on the TARE site, the College Advising tab. So up to this point, your students should have been in spring. The only thing they could do, there are no applications open. There are very few, if any, I promise, scholarships for juniors. So what they should have been doing is planning, starting, taking their tests, their SAT, ACT, creating a class schedule for next year. That is the magic words I use are challenging and manageable, and also perfecting their GPA, because as we're going to see some of these deadlines, the GPA that they finish with tomorrow is very likely the GPA that's going to be on their college applications in the next few months. Most college deadlines are in fall, so they don't have time, nor will they have grades to pull up all of a sudden and all of a sudden show a school that they're great, they're competitive. So they really know that they've tried to finalize and perfect the one that they see now. So that's pretty significant. But like I said, we already discussed junior timeline, so let's move on to what's happening in the future and why I call this Jumpstart, because this is what I need them to be doing now and over the summer until we meet again in September and sort of follow up and I give new steps. So this presentation will discuss the bullet points of each of these. Scoir, we'll talk about that, like I said, over and over again and how that's going to be used. We'll talk about the list of colleges, how to create a list so that they know where they're going to apply to. Believe it or not, we'll discuss pretty intensely how to follow a deadline. That sounds really dumb, but wait until you see the tedium of what an application requires and how 5 different schools might each require 5 different parts. So we'll talk about what those mean and how to best organize that, although Scoir helps quite a bit. Visiting colleges, my standard really cheesy line is, you're not supposed to anyway, marry someone that you haven't dated. Well, this is what we're doing. We're dating these colleges right now. You're spending time with them. You're trying to figure out if they're a fit for you, if they match you. You're about to spend 4, 5, 6 years of your life with the college, the person who's going to form the rest of your life. Plus you're paying for it. So we really want to make sure we're doing the right thing. So we'll talk about what that means. More testing strategy, including finalizing, finishing, the actual submission, what that looks like. And then, like I said, we'll end with a brief introduction into what financial aid is, because after all of this, leaving you a bit breathless, I at least want to give you hope. College is not cheap. And I'll say over and over again, at this time next year, that's it. So soon, so much faster than you think. You and your child will have a decision on what their life will look like. But we want it to be the best college with the best money, period. Best college, best money. So I at least want to leave you at peace, understanding where that money is going to come from, what it's going to look like, and how you make that best decision. And that includes everything from government aid based on a form called the FAFSA, including state aid and Bright Futures, private scholarships, school scholarships, all of that. So ultimately, all of these steps together, like I said, at this point next year, you will have an answer. Oftentimes, a decision is made for you with the numbers, and then we move from there. But please, at any point, the team that I work with, absolutely phenomenal, is manning the chat room. They know everything I do and more at times. So you can ask them any questions, or if you want to jump in and ask me while we're talking, maybe I'll get to it. Maybe I'll answer it right then. Whatever's best for all of us. I want this to be as personal and comfortable as possible.
Miss Vivian,
Yes.
there's a question that a parent is asking if
Okay.
the SAT, ACT will be included in the college decisions for next year.
In the college decisions, we're going to get to all of that. But yes,
Okay.
they will for many schools, not most. And there's a strategy behind that. So yes, they are. It is not an option. They need to take those tests. We'll discuss more. All right, so where to begin? List, fits. So if you notice that little puzzle piece, it looks kind of cheesy, but I like to refer to this often. This is the graphic because your child is a puzzle. So they're not going to be chosen by a college for one or two things, as great as one or two of those things may be. It is instead a puzzle full of pieces, and that school is going to look at all of those pieces to decide if they fit them. But alternatively, I tell the kids, look, just because a school picks you might not mean that's the best fit for you too. This is the one time they've got that they can sort of create their own path, kind of, within reason, of course, and the money. But this isn't just because I'm telling you have to do it, or your parents do. I don't want you going to a school just because I went there, go Gators, or your parents did, or your friend did, or gasp, you're following your boyfriend there. No, this is your life, your job, what you're looking for. So what does that look like to you? It is a very, very personal process. There's just a crowd of people, a village to help you get there. But ultimately, it's what they're looking for to finish the rest of what their life looks like. So I say that because we need a list, period. We need a list. I'm going to quote the College Board. They actually have a campaign called 4 or More. And there's a reason for that. We want to choose a college. You want to go to one because it's the best choice, not because it's the only one. It's the best choice. Again, the best college with the best money. So if we take a minimum of 4, I'm not going to lie, at Tara, I'm going to say this over and over again, this is Tara. Most kids apply to a significantly greater amount than 4. And I don't mean crazy, but I would say double that, 8 or 9. The most I've ever seen was 41. That was a crazy story. We'll stick around for that later. That was insane. But the more reasonable, the more choices you likely have. But we're not just going to throw darts at a board. So I'll explain what that means. So the fit, what does that look like? And that comes in anything from the size, the location, clearly the price, we'll talk about that, the programs they offer. So like I tell the kids, and I'll share with you, what do you want your life to look like next year? Do you want to wake up in a dorm halfway across the country? Do you want to wake up in the same bedroom you're in now? Do you want to, wake up and drive to campus? Are you going to walk there? You're going to take a bike? Is it cold outside? Are you in seasons? Are you hot? Do you love Miami? Hate it? All of those pieces, believe it or not, still come in with fit. I've got I should share. So I taught English seniors for years, AP Lit, including Tara in school before. So I sort of defaulted into this position because my world was just seniors, whether I liked it or not. So I'm full of stories, not because I read them or heard about it, but because they're actual live human students that I'm still friendly with today. So I often joke about the one student who went to Syracuse, which is a private school up in northern upstate New York, and had never seen snow before, didn't fully understand it. So he came back the first winter like, oh, it's different. It's really different. It was cute. But that's the idea of, wow, yeah, it is a different place. Outside of Miami, even into Central Florida and further north, it is a different world. Are you okay with that? Are you comfortable with that? All of those pieces. But there's more to it than just location. So even I tell the kids, the size of a school is significant. So Tara is, we pretend it's a small high school. It's really not. If Mr. Servin wants to chime in on these, we've actually turned into being a bit of a larger neighborhood school than intended. It's because we're such a great school and so many people want to be here. And that's fantastic. But I say that because our senior class is between 400 and 500 kids. Now it's way smaller than when I went to high school. Just a few years ago, of course, we were pushing almost 1,000 in the graduating class, but it's also very different than my parents who grew up in Ohio, whose graduating class was like less than 100. So that style of learning is up to them now. Do they want to be in a large environment? Do they want to be, when I went to UF, for example, one of my first classes ever was in a chemistry lab. It was a lab, and yet it was in a lecture hall with almost 800 kids. And I tell the story because I'm sort of a dork, where I'd sit in the front row, first day of school, freshman, all excited. And I did not understand a word my professor said. He had a very thick accent, and I was too chicken to raise my hand and ask, nor would I ever. There's 700 and some people behind me. The last thing I'm going to do is be like, can you repeat that again? I was terrified. So that was not an ideal way to learn at the time. But I could contrast that with grad school, where my master's classes were so small, 4 or 5 people, it was almost creepy. Now that's just me, when a professor can walk in and compliment you on your shirt or know your first name. But the range obviously extends between that. So I tell that to the kids. Right now you're at a mid-sized / small, large high school, but you now have the choice to choose what best fits you. Do you want a one-on-one relationship with the professor and the students around you? Is it okay that you may be only a number for the first few years of undergrad in a large university? What's best for you? Now, ultimately, again, price matters. I can't pretend like it doesn't. But as we come up with these lists, all of those factors are significant. So price we're going to get to, I promise. Academic programs. As I mentioned earlier with that use science on Scoir, a lot of our kids, especially here, know what they want or have an idea of what they want to do. And that's great. That's going to change. Can't lie. College Board says the average college freshman changes their major 3 times. And that's the first year. So now very rarely are they going to go from engineering to like education and end up in communications. Those are pretty diverse. But they'll change their focus, and that's okay. It's better to do that now than, when you're 45, ideally. And that's fine. But there are so many kids who have no idea what they want, just a general, like what I love, what I hate thing. And I say that because most colleges, cater to that. That's okay. You do not choose a major until your second year into college. To be honest, it's usually your second year. It's 60 credits, but this is Tara, and so many of our kids come out with AP and dual enrollment credits. They sometimes have to get there a little faster. We'll explain that down the road once we kind of see those numbers. But I say that because for the most part, kids have time. They're required to take some kind of elective, if you will, in college. They can take introductory courses. They can take intro to telecommunications, criminal justice, engineering, love it, hate it. So you've got a little bit of time to kind of get your feet wet and feel where you're at. Again, I'm not going to, lie and say that every single school does that. Now, if you're going to Columbia School of Engineering, you need to know that you're an engineering major. You applied to that school, to that program, you're there and you're committed. So those things aren't for everybody, but they truly are few and far between. So I want them to feel peace with knowing, all right, I've got a pretty healthy list that I can come up with and do what I want in a number of them. So the idea is that you're looking at your puzzle pieces and you're matching up what you have with what that college offers. Based on that are the schools that you're going to apply to. So once you have an idea of what those puzzle pieces are, and I use that as sort of symbolic, where your puzzle pieces are going to be everything from your GPA, your test scores, the classes that you're taking, your schedule rigor, to the off the paper, I call it, your extracurriculars, but off the paper. Who are you without those numbers? What kinds of things are you involved in? What's your passion? What's your involvement? Are you a leader? Are you an athlete? Are you involved with your religious group? Are you a scout? Are you, are you a gamer who can lead tutorials for other kids, not just stay home and game all night long? Social media is huge. What kind of presence are you leaving? Those type of things off the paper is just as significant to most colleges. So once you have all of that and you know who you are as a person, that's where we come up with this list. So if we're going to play that game of 4 or more, we'll just use that as a base. Out of those 4 colleges, let's just say that at minimum you're applying to 4. Obviously, I hope there's more. At minimum 4. One of those 4 is what we call a safety school, and that means here's your puzzle piece. This is what you are, right? Your puzzle. You know your pieces. You know your schedule rigor, how competitive you are. Here's a college you're looking at, and guess what? You are better than they are. Your puzzle pieces are better than what they're looking for. Your test scores might be a little better. Your GPA is better. Maybe you've got a more difficult schedule than what they're suggesting. That's awesome. That means out of your 4, one of those schools that you apply to should be one that you're pretty good. Nothing's a given. Nothing is ever a given. Woo! But one of them should be what you're confident with and knowing you're going to get in. You're going to get in. I know that because I'm better than what they're looking for. So one of your 4, hopefully you get at least one positive acceptance, and you know that, we're looking for more than just one, but at least there's going to be one. So that's what we call safety. It may not be your dream school. It may not be the one you hope to go to, but if you do, you're applying there because it's okay. It's okay, and you know that you're going to get in. One thing I want to bring up as a complete side note is Miami-Dade. So I say this over and over again. This is Tara. This is Tara. Every year I have kids who are nervous to tell me that they're going to go to Dade, or they don't want to share it. They always feel like for some reason we're better than that, or because it's so close, it's right there, I can walk to it, they feel like it's beneath them. I say that not to bash anything, I promise, but instead to actually talk this up. So Miami-Dade College, the largest community college institution in the country, by the way, and now it's not even a community college anymore. They have a number of 4-year degrees of majors, including nursing. So a lot of the kids who will apply to a nursing program in their university and will not get in down the road because they're so selective will come back to Dade, stay for the 3rd and 4th year for half the price, and end up getting that same exact job at Baptist Hospital that they would have done coming out of another one. So I say that to keep Dade as an option because of this. They have a merit scholarship program. It's called the American American dream. And I have to bring this up. It is not based on an essay. It is not based on your parents' income, nothing. It is based on test scores and GPA. At Terra, at this school right here, I don't have the junior list yet. I'm holding the senior ranks. There's no such thing as junior ranks, but seniors are ranked by percentile in September of their senior year. Let me just show you something. Let me just fast forward to the last page of our seniors. Hopefully you can't zoom in and see the last page. The weighted GPA, the lowest weighted GPA at Terra is a 3.811. That is out of 391 current seniors, 3.811. Well, guess what? The American Dream Scholarship at Miami-Dade says as long as you have a weighted or unweighted 3.8, you go to Miami-Dade for free, completely free for the first 2 years. You get your AA, 60 credits, fall and spring, done. Everybody, so it's not a Terra scholarship, it's a Miami-Dade scholarship. It's unique only to Miami-Dade College. And I bring that up because every kid here, you'll hear me say, has done so much extra work. We require additional language classes that Dade County does not. We require additional math and science. Dade County does not. We require 100 service hours for Bright Futures, not for Dade County, but for Terra, because we're trying to set them on this trajectory where they've got options. So at this school, I have the goosebumps talking about it every single time. I think it's so amazing. At this school, every single kid here, one, can go, and two, for free to Miami-Dade for at least the first 2 years, 60 credits. So I say that because that will always be our safety school, always. And every year when we get a handful of kids, and it really is just a handful because, look, you sent them here for a reason. I can't stop talking. You're going to bother them like I am. The expectation is they will go to college. So even when we get a handful who are like, I don't know, I don't think it's for me, I still say, it may not be. But understand this, it is free. So even if you change your mind down the road, you've got that. You've earned it. So you will always have that, if nothing else, as a safety school, and money has nothing to do with it. It's all in their academics. So please keep that in the back of your head as we talk about these colleges. I'm not saying you're going to do it, go there, but understand that's always an option. So thank you, Miami-Dade. All right, so out of your four, one will be a safety school, whatever that means to you. Two of the four should be what we call match schools. A lot of places call them target schools as well, but I like the word match. It just makes you feel better. If you match what a school looks at, it means here's your puzzle piece. Here's who you are. This is what they're looking for. You're right about there. There might be a little lower test score, but a higher GPA. You sort of balance out. So out of your four, you've got one where you know you're going to get into as your safety, and two should be the match schools because you've got a pretty good idea that once you apply, you're going to get in. It's never a guarantee. Like I said, never a guarantee. But odds are you're choosing this school because you've got a decent shot at getting in. You're pretty confident, not cocky, big difference, but pretty confident. So now out of our four, you've got one safety that's guaranteed. You've got two match schools that you probably are going to get into. Let's hope for the best. So at worst, you've got three positive choices to choose from, and we'll see that based on the money. One thing I have to tell you is UF is not a match school for anybody ever. This year especially, and we were so flexible, we had more kids get into, and as I mentioned earlier, go to UF than ever before. We had a handful of kids who had 1,500 plus on their SATs who did not get in. And it's because they look at the pieces. It's not just the test score, GPA, it's the essay, it's the person they are. So I say that because quite often we have kids, top kids, who are like, oh, I'm going to use UF as my match or even my safety school, and it does not work out that way. It's not a lottery. I will shut that down right now. It cannot be. That is illegal. But I hear that over and over again every year because it's the easiest way to explain UF decisions, why somebody did and why they didn't. It's just quick and easy to be like, oh, I just didn't get the lottery. No, that's not a thing. They have a very methodical system in place to wean their applicants, if you will. So I say that because don't use UF as a match after I just explained to you what a match was. All right, so out of the four, one's a safety, two are matches. And then that last one, what the heck? It's a reach school, and this is the shoot for the stars school. But understand what I'm saying. Here are your puzzle pieces. Here's the school you're hoping to go to. You're a little under what they want. But notice my hands. It's a little under. It's not down there. It's not, well, the best I've ever done is a 1,200, but by golly, MIT is a school for me. Nope. As I tell the kids, I don't say no. I will never say no. I will never say that's the worst idea I've ever heard of in my life, even if I'm thinking it in my head. Instead, I might be like, okay, well, Okay, good. That's let's go for it, but let's also come up with some other schools too. So it has to be reasonable. So you have to be competitive with what a school's looking for if you're a little under. That's what a true reach is. So that if you do get in, it's like, oh my gosh, I good for me, it's awesome. But if you don't, you're not crushed. You kind of thought you wouldn't because you were under what they were looking for, but not significantly. We have to be realistic. The other part of a reach school too is any selective school. It's more than just being under what they want. It's any selective school. So again, let me use MIT as an example. This year, MIT had one of the highest selectivity rates rather, in the history of the university system. They accepted 3.67% of their applicants. 3.67. Let that sink in for a minute. So what I tell the kids is, you're telling me that 96.5% of the applicants at MIT were rejected. Is it because they're morons? Of course not. No. 97% of those kids were fools? No, they were all pretty fantastic. And yet only 3.67% of them got in. So who's applying at that level? Top kids. You're solid. So even when you think, oh, it's a match, no, you're competing against tens of thousands of people just like you are. So when the odds are this small, I don't care how perfect you are, it is still a reach school simply by sheer number. So even though this is Terra, we have so many brilliant kids and very, very excited about their possibilities. If anybody ever came to me and said they were going to apply to only Ivy League schools, all of them, I would cry. I would cry, because there's just as good of a chance at them getting into none as getting into all, more or less. That's a little bit of exaggeration. So that's your competition. So that's why we want a healthy list of safety, match, reach. We want the selections to vary a little bit, so you know, wow, I'm not just only applying to the most selective schools in the world. I'm the best of the best, but it still may not be good enough. And I don't say that to bash any one child, but schools are looking for so many different fits. So that's the idea of coming up with a list from which to choose. And so then what I show the kids is this little cheat sheet. This whole presentation, like I said, will be online, so you can reference all of this, but I don't want them to rely only on this. All I've done is combined some of the more popular schools that our kids apply to and attend with what their current information looks like. Again, all of this is on the school websites, and I tell the kids, please check their websites. Don't just go by what I say or what, as we'll see, Scoir synthesizes. Go by the school website, especially now in this year. They are changing rules. They're changing deadlines faster than your head, than you could even absorb. And they're still changing. So it's not just like we've adjusted to the COVID year and we're going back to normal. No, there's still so many changes. So please check a school's website first and foremost. But second, as of May 1st, when I last updated this was current. So I show it to the kids to sort of give their, open their eyes a bit. Look at these schools. Look at that first column. These are deadlines. These are college application deadlines. So the reason I want to do this now is to let you know what your summer should look like, what your early fall should look like. Look at UF and Florida State. Their deadline, one deadline. Notice there's not a bunch. One and done, November 1st. That doesn't mean you start to apply around then. That means everything's got to be done and in. So if you were waiting to get a better GPA or waiting to become involved in an activity or a better test score, you missed it. You cannot wake up in December and be like, I'm good now. I have my ACT score. I'm solid. I'm going to apply. Nope, done. You missed it. So that's pretty significant to understand your planning. But then let's sort of scroll down toward the bottom at UM. UM has a November deadline, but they also have a January one. So if you weren't ready or you didn't feel you were as competitive by their first deadline in November, they have another one in January. So you still have that time. But if you notice the range, not everybody's like that. So you have got to start perfecting that list, that healthy list of safety schools, match schools, and reach schools sooner than later, so that you can figure out what you need to do and by when. Because it's just that simple. You miss a deadline, you're out, and let's move on to the next school. So please make sure that you're aware of what those look like. The ones in red, as I mentioned, are changing. FSU was always November 1st. This year they added to December to be nice. They have hinted that they're going to keep it at that. They haven't changed anything yet, but I'm nervous to commit to it, because if UF sticks to November 1st, FSU and UF are buddies. They typically do the same things. So I'm nervous, but I tell the kids, check. So check. That second column, it's pretty uncomfortable to talk about, but understand these are not black and white numbers. This does not mean that for UF, top column, just coincidence, no reason it's the first one, coincidence, that top column are the suggested scores. That's the middle 50%. It's called the freshman profile, and it means out of everyone that was accepted to UF this year, based on this year's stats, which are mind-blowing because we had a horrible year with test taking, the middle 50, the average, fell within that range. It's rough. Those are some pretty high scores. So when the average UF applicant that was accepted fell between a 1330, 1470, as you saw, or 30 or 34, that discourages quite a few kids who might have taken 2 or 3 SATs and the best they've done is a 1280. But I don't want to show this to say, oh, look, sucks for you, can't get into UF. No. That just means, even though the middle 50 fell within that range, they still have a quarter under that and a quarter who are better than that. So maybe your puzzle piece, your test score is a little lower, but maybe that's why your GPA is higher. Maybe that's why your essay is going to just kill it. Maybe your classes you took are better. So that balances out. And that's why, unfortunately, I don't like to, but I can explain why some of those 1510 SAT kids did not get in. And some of the kids with 1200s this year did. It's an uncomfortable conversation to have when people start, I heard this, I heard that. But there's so many pieces to that. And yet I still want the kids to understand this is how they create part of their list. So when you see the test range that you fall within, you need to be realistic with what to expect. So God bless you if you took the SAT 5 times, and the best you've ever done is a 900. I don't want you to look at this list and be like, I guess I can't go. No, it just means that as you're creating your list, you better have something to balance the deficiency in your lower test score with something better, and then still be realistic. Like I said, that's probably not the best idea to throw at MIT or Stanford. And the last column is GPA, and this is where you have done the right thing, my friends. So these are weighted GPAs. Understand this. Weighted is the higher of the two. So your child has had 2 GPAs or most of their high school, their whole life, middle school into high school. The weighted, the higher of the two is what matters. That's what counts, and this is why. You can have a student with straight A's their whole life, 4.0, awesome, but that doesn't tell the school what kind of classes they were in. Of course, your son can get straight A's if they were taking CrossFit and weight training and culinary arts and art 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. Of course, they can get straight A's. But is it the same when instead they're in AP Calculus and honors history and government economics and Spanish 3? Of course, no, it's not, even at this school. So the weight, the honors, the AP, and the dual enrollment give bonus points, and that's what a college uses. They want to see that a child has done well in challenging classes. That's more important, and that's why there's a weight there. So as you're aware of what your weighted GPA is right now, maybe you have to ask. Note that because Tara only by design honors and AP core classes, I say this with love. Even if your kid's a fool, their GPA is still really good, really good. Really good. They can have B's and C's at this school and still have higher than a 4.0 easy, because those B's and C's came in honors and AP classes. Just to give you context, an A in a regular class, which we don't have, we have a few electives because we have to, like PE, there is no honors PE, an A is a 4.0. If you get an A in an honors class, that's a 5.0. If you get an A in an AP or dual enrollment class, that's a 6.0. So when all we've got is honors and AP core classes, like I said, even lower traditional grades are actually better than getting straight A's at the neighborhood high school or a different program. So this is where our kids' puzzle pieces are always phenomenal. That list I just showed you for Miami-Dade, where every kid here has a weighted GPA, that's unbelievable. And if I told this story to other high schools, I bet they wouldn't believe me. So the proof is in the pudding. But that's the idea. That's the workload that your kids have done. And most of you know that by now because you've all taken math classes at Tara, right, Servin? Moving on. So that weighted GPA is what we count. That's what's important. And that's what we look at. Now, I can't lie.
Wait. You can't say right, Servin.
I was just commenting on the rigor of our math classes here, the program.
I heard every word you said.
Yeah.
It's hard to listen to every word because you go a million miles an hour.
I know.
Yeah, it's a miracle we don't get fired. That line you said, even if a child's a fool, they still have a 4.3 GPA.
I mean that with love, like I said. We've got a couple of fools here, and they're great kids with big smiles.
I could have been a fool, but no, it's just by design. It's our counselors play this recording in their brain as they do subject selection, and we're on automation. So yes, you're right, Vivian. Go for it.
Yes, and look, Servin, you said it, not me. You're self-proclaimed fool, and now you're the leader of a village of fools. So they're all going to get scholarships to state schools. So we'll own it. We will. But I say that because for those students who feel like their GPA isn't so pretty because of a certain math or science class or some of the harder ones here, believe it or not, they're still actually quite good. So to give you hope. Also, that a college transcript will only see the final grade. They don't see quarters. So if you had some good times, some bad times along the way, the final grade, the average is what matters. So before I move on to the next slide, though, I have to be transparent. The weighted GPA is going to be redone. So in Miami-Dade, that's how we do our grades. 6.0 for AP, 5.0 for honors. That's Miami-Dade. That's our county. And that's the GPA they've earned, and that's what they're going to go with. You've earned it. Let's go with it. But how does a school measure your student against someone from another state, someone from another school, private school down the road from here doesn't have 4.0, 5.0, they have it out of 12. So how can UF look at your son with a 4.6 and that daughter who has a 10.5 versus a few schools in Alabama that use percentages? How can you tell? So every college redoes it. They reconfigure them on their own. They're very open with it. It's not like a secret, so that they can recreate what those GPAs mean. And it's also only out of core classes: math, science, English, social studies, and languages. So unfortunately, though our academies here are pretty top notch for the most part, and their honors classes and their GPA, they still count as elective. So they will not count as far as the college GPA goes. Instead, it's an experience that they can write about on their application. So that's among the reasons, the ways rather, that you come up with these lists for colleges. That's how you decide what your safety is, what your match is, and what your reach is. And like I said, four or more, come up with these options because you want to choose based on the best one. So what drives me crazy is when a kid comes in and says, "Oh, but miss, I'm only applying to FIU. That's where I'm going." I'm fine with that. I go to FIU all day long. At the end of this presentation, eventually, I'll explain why for many of our kids, that's the best option times thousands of dollars. I get it. But it bugs me when they say that's the only school they applied to. I want you to go there because it was the best choice, not the only choice. The other thing I want to leave you with, a little bit of hope, is not yet, discount a school because it's too expensive. Yeah, college is expensive, absolutely. And so when you Google a school, when you check your Scoir account and see the price, you're going to do this. It's rough. Yeah, however, much like a car, that's the best way to explain college pricing. You do not walk into a Honda dealership, look at the tag, and say, "I'll take it." No, that's never the price you pay. And it's very similar with college. But like I tell people, it's not like you could walk into though, which by the way was $62,000 a year this year just for one, and that does not include dorm. So you cannot walk into and be like a Honda, "I'll pay you 30." No, it doesn't work that way. But every single school has a completely different financial system based on their funding, their government funding, their state funding, their donors, their fellowships, their benefit, everybody. It depends on so many factors. It's not just your income or your taxes. It's how many people who live in your family, how many siblings you have, who's in college, where do you live, the degrees, so many pieces. So I tell the kids, don't yet look at a school and be like, "I can't, it's too expensive." It might be, I'm not going to pretend, but until you get that financial aid package, you just don't know, right? And I'm going to explain how that works in a second. So the first part of getting into college is that decision. The second part, the most important part, is when they send you the money, the financial aid package, usually 2 months later. That's how you make your decision. And that's where we have some amazing conversations and some very sad ones. I'm sitting in my office right now and I keep a box of tissues underneath my refrigerator for the month of April. These are my April tissues. I'm not making this up. It's because in a normal non-COVID world, my office is full of parents and students as they struggle to come up with a decision because one or the other has their heart set on their dream school, but their head and their wallet knows it might not be the best choice. So that's why I say sometimes most often the decisions are made for you. But I don't want you to discount a school just yet because it's too expensive. But I also don't want you to go rogue and just start applying to crazy schools because I said so. So by law, every college has to have a net price calculator. That's what it's called, net price calculator. You can find it on every college's website, or you can link to it through Scoir. But I want you to, before you create any list, even though I just said schools are expensive, but they don't have to be, you would be surprised more often than not when you plug in some basic info. It's not binding. You're not contacting the IRS or aliens. It is just generic. You plug in the questions that they're asking, that particular school, and they will spit out a reasonable estimate of what it might cost you. Now, it may be full, which is just kind of nuts because that's their indication that you probably can afford it. That's the other part of college. You may be able to afford it, but you just don't want to pay for it. Big difference. It is not the government's job to put you through college. It's their job to help you if needed, but if not needed, then that's why we have choices. So we have to remember that. So just because you have the money doesn't mean you want to spend it. And that's where the calculators come in. But quite often, very high incomes, middle, upper middle, high incomes, expensive schools have the means to benefit you more than you think. So as you're creating this list, before you finalize that, please check the net price calculator. We always hope you're going to get more than that. We hope. But at worst, that is what you're going to have to pay. So oftentimes schools are like, wow, you said we didn't give enough money, but why did you apply to us? You should have had an idea of what it would cost you. But you'd be really surprised. And as I'm staring at my office walls that you can't see now, but a lot of you will see shortly, I have pictures of alums from over the years. We have 9 graduating classes now. And many of them send me pictures of them in their colleges. And so many of them are stories I can tell you about kids who just never thought that they could afford a school. Even, again, not low disadvantaged students, reasonable incomes. And it turned out that between merit or between need of some pretty upper income schools, they're able to make it happen. So please double check that. Okay. Oh, I went backwards. So as you're hearing me talk, though, it's not just me talking at you. I can't tell you enough how Scoir can help you do all of these things. And that's a huge site. That's a big part of what I want you to play with over the summer. Look at Scoir, add all of these up. But I also want to give you a second option. You know, it's helpful to hear many voices in your head. It's probably not the right thing to say. The College Board, I keep talking about them as if I work for them, but they really have such a great product. They run the AP, the SAT. They actually run a part of financial aid for colleges. And they also run a college site. So in addition to Scoir, I'm telling you, that should be your first go-to. It is really, really fantastic and helpful. And like I said, parents and students can access it alike. But College Board has its own college planning tool called Big Future. A number of tools on there as well. I don't want to get too lost in the weeds with this, but one of the ones that I'm a big fan of is called their College Search. Your student already has a College Board account. They had to. We make them take the PSAT here since like birth at Terra every year. Mr. Servant even pays for it in 9th grade. The state pays for it in 10th. Servant pays for it in 11th. We want that practice. So they've got an account. And one of the features, College Search, this is how quick it is. You answer a series of questions. You can answer a ton or you can answer very little. It is completely up to you. And it's from everything from size of a school to location, to how far away you want to go. Do you want to go to the Northwest or do you want to be specific to Boston? You can be as specific or generic as you want, as I said. And it spits out a list. Based on your preferences, it spits out the schools you should look at as essentially safety or match schools. Once you do that, these are just JPEGs. I can't click on them live right now, but you would be able to, and you could click on, let's say, Auburn. You see what that school looks like. It gives you a link to their net price calculator. It tells you even, the classes you're taking, and you can match that up to see what your likelihood of getting accepted is. And they update it every single year. So in addition to Scoir doing very similar things that are a little easier to find and you have to do it anyway, Big Future is another way to narrow that list. And I say that because after I do this presentation, usually the next few weeks are full of kids like, Miss, what's my list? Give me schools. And I have to say, I can't, I don't know. Do you like a big school? UF's still far away. Are you talking New York? I don't know. How do you narrow that down? There's thousands of schools. So this helps you get there is what I'm getting at. I don't want a computer to make a decision for you, but it's a really good start so that we can then narrow them down, but not create one. In addition, as I hinted earlier, the scattergram on Scoir. So this is the first breaking news look, because as I said, this is the first year we've had it. This is Terra, no student names, as I mentioned. I promise you, no IDs or names. This is UF. So as you're on your kids, your son or daughter's your Scoir account, you just type in the school name, and one of the buttons available after researching is called analysis. It's really simple, I promise. I know I say this easily, but it's very simple. And look at those little dots. If I hover over the green ones, those would give me the GPA and test scores, potential majors of the kids who got in to UF. The reds, not so much. But the idea is, wow, this is where I fall. This is where my numbers are. These are my puzzle pieces. And like I said, not just in the world, but at Terra. So all of our stats are going to be relatively similar. And you have an idea of, ooh, I don't know, I'm still under. In that lower left quadrant, nobody got in. That's me. I should either take another test or find a better way to do something to increase my puzzle pieces. Off to the right, it even includes lists of schools that other kids who applied to UF also applied to and their success rates. So it's really cool way, another tool for you to create a list. That's all of this. The bulk of this presentation was discussing the list and how important it is for you to match that up. In a perfect world, I keep saying that, you would see a campus. I just mentioned you don't marry someone you don't date. Well, hopefully it's not a stranger. You could see that person. But who has the means, the budget, the time, the safety, the protocols now to actually go stand and sit on a campus, look around in the streets, sit in the stadium or a classroom and be like, I got it. This is me. I feel it. No, it's very difficult to do that now. You all know the college tour that we normally take junior year couldn't happen. I'm not even sure if they will next year. I think they're doing field trips, but I don't know about overnight field trips yet. So even when we were able to sort of jump in and help provide that experience, it's rough to get there. So if you can't truly see a school, if you cannot understandably fly on spring break and go, or summer break and go to New York, Boston, LA, come on, who can do that? Then Google the heck out of them. Scoir, like I said, gives their links, gives their social media links. It's great to see a brochure, but it's even greater to see social media where you see the good and the bad of everything. We have college fair, that's still happening, but I tell the kids, it's just a giant event in the cafeteria where you look somebody in the eyes, ask general questions, and steal their pens. So it doesn't necessarily help you decide if you're going to choose a school or not. But at least every chance you've got, the visits, the online visits where schools will, talk to them, ask them. Some of them will even say, look, here's my essay. Can you read it and give me suggestions? It depends on the school. But the more you can date that school before you commit to it, the better, obviously, and whatever that means to you. All right. So once you basically have an idea of the 4, 5, 6, 7 schools that you're going to commit to, your healthy list, this gets crazy. It's applying and knowing what is needed can be very overwhelming. And it's simply because there are so many pieces. There's so many pieces. Every school is different. And if you start to lose track of that, if you lose track of each username and password, you're out. So the idea of keeping up with that is tough. So I need the kids, I need them to be organized. I need you to help them organize, whether it's Post-its, Excel sheets. I've created one for them on my college advising tab under timelines. It's a senior cheat sheet where it's a pretty font, pretty colors, and they plug in their schools, what that school needs. And give me a second to just go nuts for a minute. But when a school might need transcripts, might not need transcripts, they might want 0 transcripts, they might want self-reported transcripts, they want 1 essay, no essay, 2 essays, 3 essays, 0 teacher letters, 3 teacher letters, 1 teacher letter from a science teacher only. Those types of things get really crazy. Test scores, some want test scores, some don't. Some allow multiple test scores. So all of that times 5 schools, times a username, password, and deadlines is why kids start to lose their mind. You only apply to college, knock on wood, once. So it's not like you've done this a bunch of times. Even if you've done it recently to go back to school, if you had an older son or daughter, things are different. They change every year. So I beg them to keep meticulous track of what all of these pieces are and know what they are. It sounds so dumb to say that, but please check each college's website. Look at Scoir. Once you add a school to your list, it will summarize what's needed. It will tell you everything that college needs and by when. So there's really no excuse other than losing track of how to do it. That bottom bullet point is huge, by the way. So a little quick story, quick-ish, of a former student of mine who was a Florida State kid. And I say that because though he was a senior here, his family were alums, his brother went to Florida State. The family even bought an apartment in Tallahassee because it was cheaper, they thought long-term for their 2 boys, than to get a dorm. So they were diehard Garnet and Gold. And I didn't have any doubt. Florida State's not a difficult school, but it is not easy at all, at all. A lot of kids use it as a backup and don't get in. But either way, so I didn't have any doubt about this student. He was a pretty top kid. It was my AP Lit class, as I mentioned, and he was pretty equal to that. So one part of senior year that gets a little uncomfortable is when the decisions come out. So some schools give decisions little by little. It's called rolling as they get applications. Other schools like UF, like Harvard, have a deadline and they have a decision day. So February 17th, it's the second Friday every year in February for UF. The decisions come out at 5 o'clock at the same time. So I taught seniors. I knew that. I had to know the dates because, the next day the kids were either really excited or crying or absent. So I knew that. And I just noticed that day at FSU, kids were excited in my class, but he just sort of was low key in the back. He didn't really say much. I'm not going to call him out in the middle of class and be like, hey, excited, even though we've been talking about it all year. So I take him after class, everything good. And I say this, and I told the kids, he's kind of, I'm tall. So when somebody I have to look up to, it's pretty impressive. And that's no other reason or relevance to this conversation other than as I'm looking up to him, like, we're good. Big giant kid starts sobbing, like shoulder cry sobbings. And I'm thinking, oh, what have I done? I never should have said anything. He didn't get in. He didn't get in. As it turns out, upon further research and to make the story much shorter, it's not that he didn't get in. He didn't finish his application. He completely gave up, forgot, never checked to make sure that the test scores he thought he sent to Florida State got there. So a school isn't going to tell you that. They're not going to tell you why you got in or you didn't. But long story, we ended up talking to Florida State admissions that said, yeah, he didn't finish his application. And of course, he's going, oh, I did though. Yeah, yes, I sent my test scores. And now you can check that. These kids tell them, follow up. You can check your SAT set. You see the date you sent it to a school and the date they received them. And he's going through this list and he sees UF, UCF, Florida Gulf Coast. no Florida State. Somehow, in the excitement of this whole process, it just slipped his mind. He did not send his scores in. So of course his next answer was, oh, I'm so sorry, I'll do it right now. No, you think they care? You think Florida State that gets 60,000 applications for 12,000 spots 2 months after the deadline is going to be like, sure, buddy, send them in? No, he just didn't go. He missed it. He screwed up, didn't follow up. Now, in Florida State's defense, they had told him that probably 10 times. He never logged into his Florida State portal. He never followed up to check his SAT site. So it really was on him. But I still think about him and wonder if he's like the black sheep at the Thanksgiving table because everyone's wearing a Florida State shirt and he's wearing a UCF one. So please make sure you follow up, because if a mistake happens, it is not on the school, it is on you. Just like certain issues. So I tell the students, as you're filling out applications, you don't plan on screwing up. Of course, you know your birthday. You're not going to mess that up. So many times that happens, and it's not because you screwed up your birthday. It's because as you're racing through an application, you're trying to get to the hard parts, you miss the easy ones. And so many times kids for their birthday will put in today's date or the year. So maybe they'll have their birthday February 3rd, but instead of putting 2002, they put 2021. Guess what? That's an automatic, a college computer system isn't going to allow. There's an age limit to go to college. Dumb mistakes. And again, I don't bring these up to kind of, bring the single instance that I know this happened. This happens every year, multiple times. I can fix a lot, but there's plenty I cannot. So please be very careful as you fill out these applications. You do not anticipate making the errors that you will inevitably make. Social security number, horror stories of kids who thought they knew theirs, had transcribed a number, or found out senior year they never had one. That's always exciting. Residency issues. If anything's pending, please let me know. There are some restrictions that I can help you with. And last name. If you are a hyphenated last name, this is huge. A lot of kids, especially in Miami, it's very common, but they don't go by that name. They don't go by Gonzalez-Gomez. They only go by Gonzalez, and that's fine. I'll call you that. I'll call you whatever you want me to. But if that's your name, if that's what it says on your social security number, your birth certificate, your driver's license, that's your name. And for you to only list half of that on an application is a big problem. It will not match up with what the government knows you have, which screws up your financial aid, which goes back to your taxes. So please, if there's any part of the school or anything that I don't think I've been using that name, we need to fix it now. I can't, the registrar can, but I can sure help you get there so that we make sure everything matches. And again, I say this because every year, stories upon stories, multiple where instances happen that could have been completely preventable. All right. So as we get into the actual application process, know the list, know the deadlines, what's expected, fix the issues, and tests. As somebody had started to bring up in the chat, tests. I like to say you're more than a number. I wish you were. Not really that much. It's a huge part of that puzzle piece. It's a huge part. And so I tell please take the SAT and ACT. Take both. Take both. You're going to do better in one. You are over one over the other. I don't care which one. A lot of kids hate the ACT. They loathe it. They are nervous. It's fast. They're much shorter sections, 25 and 30-minute sections instead of 55 and 60 minutes on SAT. But for whatever reason, we can talk about this after the presentation if you want. At this school, the majority of our kids who get bright futures, 69% as of last year's numbers, 69% of our kids who had bright futures, they have it, they all have it, but 69% of those got it with their ACT score. I say that because it's not an easier test, but it's the second option for most kids. We're in love with SAT. I'm quoting College Board. We have SAT, ACT, PSAT practice. The Khan Academy is free. I beg kids to practice on that. It's free tutoring through SAT site. And yet ACT is the one that most of our kids hang their hat on. So I beg them, please take both. Take one of each if you haven't already, and whatever one you do better on, only move forward with that one and put the other one away. Don't worry about it. Colleges and scholarships will take either of them. Bright Futures, it doesn't matter which one, either of them. So that's why I want to make sure they kill both of those. There's no limit to how many times you take a test. I get that question a lot because back in our day there was. That stopped about 10 years ago. You can take a test 50 times. Don't. That's crazy. That's a lot of stress, money. That ruins how many Saturdays, but you can. But know when to say when. If you've studied as well as you can and you took a test 3 times and you're relatively the same, you're not going to improve on the 7th time versus the 5th. So know when to call it so that you can know what your matches, what your schools are to apply to. But with that said, you can test all through senior year as long as you're aware of the deadlines, the college deadlines that are needed. If you're on free reduced lunch, you can take the SAT for free twice and the ACT for free 4 times. You just have to apply for the waiver on the TARA site. And that's what I beg the juniors, to be doing now, so that they can plan ahead and have these numbers ready for summer. Okay, now the question that was asked earlier, and I have to bring up as extra for this part, test optional. This is a magic word that is newer, more common to this year. More and more colleges, even before Corona, were starting to play with this term, saying, I don't know if a test score defines a student. Even though their GPA is great and their classes are good, there are plenty of kids who are just bad test takers. Why should we measure them across everybody else? Now, there are just as many schools who are like, but we do though. So again, it comes down to the school. The state of California, as a matter of fact, their state legislature ruled that they cannot use standardized testing. They cannot. So that was encouraging for a year. And so they also ruled that we'll just come up with our own test. So now they're not going to use SAT or ACT. They're going to create and use their own California standardized test. So it sort of defeats the purpose to be hypocritical. But either way, I bring this up because it's still a huge part of admissions. So if a school asks or requires a test score, that's where our ranges come up. That's how you know if you're competitive with what they're looking for. But more and more private schools and many out-of-state schools are calling it test optional. And that means if you've got a test score, but you're not confident in it, you don't feel like it best represents you, don't send it. We won't use it. It doesn't mean get out of jail free. It doesn't mean, I am not telling you don't take a test at all. I'll tell you why in a second. It just means if it's not going to help you, don't send it in. Now, it's not a free pass because that means that college is going to look at all of the other pieces even more closely. You don't send in a test score, they're going to look at your classes even more closely, your GPA, the hours, the service, the leadership. They have to make up for that application. So as I mentioned, it's not because you're a fool and you're just, I'm trying to hide it from a college. No, everything else better match up. But if you've taken it, or in the case this year, where we had so many testing sites canceled because of safety issues, they didn't have the luxury of taking 2 or 3 times. They had one, if that, and it was taken far away in Atlanta because they had to drive up to it. That's a lot of pressure. Colleges recognize that. So if it's test optional, it means you decide if it's going to help your admission. If you send it in, they're going to use it. So understand that. One negative part of this is every single state this year went test optional, except the state of Florida. We were the only state in the entire country this year, current year that just passed, that still required tests. So as I mentioned, the seniors this year just had it awful, where they might have registered for a test 5, 6, 7 times and every single one of them were canceled. We were under lockdown way longer than other places were. And yet FIU, yet UF, UCF were like, oh yeah, that sucks, but we need one anyway. Now, in their defense, colleges were like, we are so sorry. We get it. We will do our best. But the Board of Governors said, you know what, we still need that as a measuring tool. That's how we can tell if our universities are so competitive. I say that because of a lot of the states that were test optional last year have switched. Now they require them. Florida continues to require tests. So as I'm telling you, decide whether or not you want to send a score. If you're even thinking about FIU, UCF, UF, Florida State, USF, you have to have a good test score. It's not a choice. So think about that as you're studying for these tests. Was test optional last year, and they've decided just recently, they announced they're going to continue that. So for your class, if your student doesn't have a comparable test score, very, very friendly, very nice, says, oh, we'll think about it, you decide. But nobody else in the state of Florida. So that's miserable. All right, applications. I promise we're getting there. Applications. So as I mentioned, you have to know what's needed and by when, and then look at all of these check pieces. This is the part of the process. The application itself is just this big. That is very quick, very detailed, basic information section. Maybe it's an essay, maybe it's not, depending on the college. Once you send that off, by no means are you done. And that's what's frustrating. That application could be through their own college, like FIU has their own application, Miami-Dade has their own application, or it could be part of a larger group of applications. So you may have heard the term Common App. It stands for Common Application. It is not an app on your phone, it's a website. And that was the idea. I don't know if you could sort of see behind me, I have a map, half the wall of the almost 1,000 schools in the United States that take the Common App. And that means you only fill it out one time and you click, 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 click down the list of schools you're applying to. And it takes that one application and goes off to all of them. So how nice if you're applying to 10 schools and they're all on Common App, it's just one application sent electronically to 10 places. But not FIU, they have their own, not Miami-Dade, they have their own. So that's the kind of thing I'm getting at. You have to know what each school does and what they need. Scoir will list that for you, so you at least have a better idea of what to keep track of. But that's just one piece. You have to pay for the application. Like, it's expensive. And the state of Florida, every state school is $30 FIU, $30 UCF, $30 UF, $30 Miami-Dade. Is 70, Duke is 85, Columbia is $100. So when we start looking at 9, 10, 41 schools, it could be pretty pricey. If you're on for your reduced lunch, most schools will accept fee waivers. That's explained by each college to know how they do that, but you have to pay for it, whether it's with a waiver or whether it's with your credit card. Otherwise, you didn't finish the process. Test scores, as I said, does a school take it? Do they? Are you going to send it off? Which one? SAT, ACT? Do you have to physically send it through the SAT site? If you do, cool, $12 for every school, $12 every school. And it takes 3 weeks to send them. So you have to plan to make these deadlines. Now, the good news is that a lot of schools, even though they require test scores, are saying, don't send it to us. Don't pay. That's silly. Just tell us what you got. Tell us. Don't lie. Stories. Don't lie. Because if you do get in, eventually you will have to send it. But at least to begin with, it saves you some time. But you have to know. You can't assume got your test score because you never sent it in if that's not something they take. They actually do. Allows self-reported test scores. But that's something else you need to research for these colleges. Transcripts. Dade County has 5-page transcripts. It includes everything from vaccinations to your conduct. It's just crazy. The state of Ohio has a 1. It's a couple classes and grades. You can imagine how a college does not want to sort through that. So a ton of schools require transcripts. They want to see the grades and the classes you got, your classes and the grades you earn in them. But more and more, they don't. They want the student to tell them the classes they took, to tell them the grades they earned. Don't lie. But if a school doesn't take a transcript, you sending one to them has done nothing. You missed that part of the deadline. I'll bring up UF again. They don't take transcripts. They don't have them. So every now and then I have a parent who'll be like, oh, I need you to send my transcript to UF. And I think we are way lost. 1, first of all, I can't do that. I can't even have the power to do that. 2, they don't take transcripts. Tells me you didn't read the directions on the UF site. They instead have their own website where the kid plugs in the stuff, plugs in their classes and grades. But do you see why this gets crazy? You have to know that by studying the schools you're applying to and what's needed, like I said, by when. Please follow up. Please follow up. So many of these pieces will get lost. Not because, it's not a thing to get there. You just forget them. Letters of recommendation. Good news is they're very rare. They really are. Gone are the days where that was a huge part of applications. And this is why. So many high schools now are giant. And even if they're not, it is very difficult to have a teacher or counselor or human write a generic, authentic letter on one kid out of hundreds that really gets the essence of who they are. So most letters now, if a teacher writes them, I'll get to that in a second, are essentially templates. I'm not saying this to sound lazy or to justify bad jobs, but when somebody can't know who you are through and through, but instead, oh, this is a GPA, here are the activities they're involved in, we're basically regurgitating a cheat sheet that they gave us. What does it tell a college? Nothing. They've already said that on their application. It's very rare to have a letter where somebody knows your child well enough to be like, I remember the day I first met them. They asked a question I never thought of before. That told me they were inquisitive. The wind was coming out of the northwest. Who does that? So when it's very difficult to either find someone to write a good letter or to get it on time, schools have backed away. They have backed away. However, the Ivies, a lot of the selective schools, it's still a very necessary part, very necessary. So I say this because understand it is not a teacher's job to write a letter. And so many of them here and beyond, coaches, bosses, whomever you could get a letter from, if the school is allowed, they don't write letters or they'll have policies, especially here when a senior English teacher has 150 kids, all 150 want one letter. Now they want 2 because they have multiple colleges. Teachers can and do exercise the right to say, I'm done, I'm out. I'll only write the first 50 or only write them if you have an A in my class. Or Georgia Tech, MIT wants a letter from a science teacher. So which science teacher here would you ask? What if that one says no? Can you go back to 11th grade, 10th grade, 9th grade? Who's going to say yes? So if you're researching schools that require letters, it means that is very much a part of the process and you have got to start shopping. I tell these kids, do not burn your bridges. Don't lazy out at the end. No junioritis, senioritis, because you never know if you're applying to a school or program needs a letter. You need that person's recommendation. And if they say no and they have the right to, there are no louder complaints to me or Mr. Servin to say that teacher won't do it. Make them. No one can force a pen to be written. So they have to use their resources wisely and know in advance if it's required. As an option. All right. So again, most commonly schools don't even use letters anymore. UF doesn't take letters, FSU, UCF, FIU, Miami-Dade. So as I mentioned, it's rare, but if it's required, it's something you have to plan ahead of time. The essay. If a school needs an essay, FIU does not, UCF does not, Miami-Dade does not, Florida Gulf Coast does not. But if a school does, That's a lot of pressure. Now you've got the puzzle piece, you've got your grades, your GPA, your classes, but now off the paper, who are you? What beautiful thing are you going to say about yourself that's memorable? When I'm an admissions committee member and my day that week is to read 100 essays, what makes you, number 65, memorable over the others that have the same puzzle pieces as you do? So this is the most stressful part. I'll stand by this all day long. I've just told you a lot of panicky information, and yet the essay is the most stressful part. And it's because of the pressure you and your son or daughter puts on themselves. How do you be funny if you're not? How do you tell a story if you don't think you have one? How do you come off the paper outside of your numbers? I might have 1,000 hours, but if they weren't important to me, if it wasn't something I was involved in, what do I write about? So at the end of junior year, at this point, most English teachers already started the process. The beginning of senior year, all of the English teachers helped develop it. But again, they're just one person. I read a lot of essays, but I still can't get to hundreds and hundreds of them as an extra set of eyes. Any school that requires an essay, all of them now have the prompts out. So they can start, they can look, they can research. But we're not talking essays of like yesteryear, where it's like, tell us about yourself. Oh no, these essays now, if the school requires them, are really, really specific and require some pretty commonly creative thinking. If your son or daughter isn't creative, I hate to see them shut down and be like, I just want to apply to that school. My favorite one of all time, and it's years old now, is University of Chicago. One of their essay questions was, where's Waldo? Really? That's an essay question. What do you say to that when you instead were ready to write about how your grandmother came here on a boat to give you a better life? And now you have to talk about where's Waldo really? Another one, what makes odd numbers odd? That's an essay to see your personality, to see how your character shows. So these are the kinds of essays that are, if required, what's expected. So that does take a lot of time. And so I don't want to see kids miss a college, like I said, because the essay scared them off. It is supposed to be a story of who they are. If who they are is boring and awful, let's put that out there. Maybe that's the bucket that school wants to fill, but it takes time. And so that's why we need to start that now. As we're about to submit these applications, please, this is the parent part of me jumping in, look at their emails, make sure they're professional, take any X out of it. If there are multiple X's in any email address, just dump it right now. It won't get you kicked out of a college, but you don't want to be, as I tell you, be unforgettable, but for the right reasons. Social media, I'll speak more about this in September. And I tell the kids, I'm not here to say that your social media will be hacked. Nobody can do that. I don't care what MIT, Stanford school you're going to. They cannot hack your social media, but they can check it, and they will. And I'm full of stories, and I'll share them with you come down the road. Please make sure that their social media is private. It's nobody's business. Please make sure if they're involved in things and they're tagged, the other people who tag them, those are private. It happens often, again, not that they're hacked, that a school will ask for social media to be shared, let's say in a college interview. Or what happens more frequently is that students snitch and they'll say, I didn't get in. I didn't get into UF, but my best friend did. And then all of a sudden, anonymously, we get a letter with a picture of social media. Like, wait a minute, is this representative of the kid? Here's an appeal form. Let's talk about it. So I cannot tell them enough. If you don't want your mom to see it, your boss, please don't even put yourself in a position to have anything out there. This world is very public now. You don't want to be public for the wrong reasons. All right, so as we finish this part then and move into financial aid, what I want you to do now, when I say like this very second, once I finally shut up, this is your game plan. Look at Scoir, get involved with it, play with it, add your parents to it, all of that. Add the schools, look at the net price calculators, come up with that list. Once you have that list, you sort of get to a place where you finalize it. What applications are needed? Is it a Common App school? You could start that now. You might not be able to submit it. The applications don't open until summer, but you could start it. You can look at the essay. You could get started on that. I crossed out Coalition app. It's another type of application that's accepted, but most schools that accept the Coalition app also take the Common App. And I could tell you right now, from years of experience, it's probably not the right thing to say, but the Coalition app is awful. I hope none of you parents are on the board. If you are, talk to me. I can help you fix it. There's typos in the application. Schools haven't gotten the piece. This is a mess. It is an absolute mess. So please ignore Coalition as much as you can and only do Common App. The essays, as I mentioned, look to see if your schools need them, what they need, how many they need, start brainstorming. You can still be testing, try to finalize those scores so that your puzzle pieces are getting closer and closer. And as the applications open in the summer, if you know you're competitive, start sending them out, get it going. You don't have to send every piece at the same time. You don't hit the test button, the essay button, the application button, and the payment button, 1, 2, 3, go. No, as long as all of those pieces are there by the deadline, you're set. So you can do them in different orders as long as they're all there. Whew, okay. So then to brush through financial aid, after I just went off on all of this, I want to explain, yeah, it's going to cost, but hopefully it won't cost as much as you think it will. And that's why we make the decisions we do. So please understand, when we're talking about how to pay for everything I just told you, money is going to be based on two different things. It's going to be based on your income. You can't touch that anymore. It's done. It's based on your, right now, class of 22 is based on your taxes that you already finished filing. You can't game the system. You can't screw with it. You can't lie about your ex-husband. None of those things. It's done. So based on your income, your taxes, your household, all of that is how a college might be able to give you some money from the government or from the state. Can't touch it. So what I do like to focus on, though, I'll get to this in September, is the merit money, merit. And this is because it has nothing to do with your income. You can be dirt poor, you can be incredibly wealthy. Merit is your brain, your test scores, your classes. It's the Tara part. It's the kid part, the Tara kid. So this is what I want to control, since money I cannot, nor can you. These are the essays you might have to write. These are the programs, the videos you might have to submit to win scholarships. It's completely separate from income. So these are the ones that I focus the kids on a little bit more, because the odds are greater if you get them. But let's go backwards first. So out of these need and merit money, understand down the road, again, we will meet again in September when this makes sense, but know this is coming. The money comes from the federal government, Go USA, and it's going to be based potentially on your FAFSA. That is a free online document. It is not difficult to fill out. I can't help you do it because there's a lot of private information, your social, your taxes, even though people come in and just drop it on my lap. Please help. It's free, it's quick, but you can't even do it. You can't touch it until October 1st. You can't do anything, which is why I don't want to get too crazy with it now, because it's just going to scare you, when we will get crazy with it in September when it makes sense. So you can't touch it till October. But for the most part, if you are a normal tax-paying citizen with no stars next to your name, or any weird extenuating circumstances, you type in your name, your social security number, you quote, this is a button. It says, do you wish to link to the IRS? Again, as long as you file taxes like a normal citizen, not these, any weird situations, you click yes, and the entire document self-populates. You answer 2 or 3 more questions, like what schools do you want to send this to, and it's done. So years ago, the FAFSA was a nightmare. It took hours. Now it can be done in as easy as 5 minutes, and I'm not exaggerating at all. So it's not that difficult, but it is the basis that a school can potentially give you money, including a Pell Grant, including additional grants, including work study, which is working on campus, including student loans, which we will discuss again ad nauseum in September when it makes sense, interest rates, but that's based on your income. The second part of the money is going to come from the state of Florida. So even though I just bashed them for being really stingy with test scores, fantastic merit program that Tara is based on, essentially. Bright Futures is a merit program. It has nothing to do with your income, nothing at all, even though they try to change it to be that way, nothing. I'll explain all of this. So the website doesn't even open till October. Again, your student can't do anything. We will do it together, I promise. The only thing they have to do, I'll explain, is a very quick application we do together. And ultimately, what we're trying to win are 3 scholarship levels. 3. The first level is 100% tuition at a state school in Florida. Again, FIU, UCF, Florida State, UF, 100% tuition. And they give you $300 for books every semester. So $600 total. That's not a lot. If you've been to college or read recently, books are ridiculous. You're going to need more, but it's a good start. And it also pays for summer. I tell the kids, I don't want you going to school all year round for 4 years. Take a break. But if you did, it's free. So 100% tuition. The second level, and again, I'll show in a second what you need, is 75% tuition in summers, no books. And the third level is awesome, but not for us because universities don't accept it. It's more the tech route. It's more if you're going to be a technician, a mechanic, air conditioner inspector, elevator inspector. And I sort of joke, but it's not really a joke. These are programs that though universities don't pay for, most of these jobs, the training is done within a year and they're going to end up making way more money than any of us are coming out of college. But I digress because they've worked hard enough to academically qualify for the top 2 levels. And this is what they need. Again, not till October. Can't even touch it till then. But just so you know, the first level, 100% on the left, Florida academic, you need a 3.5 weighted GPA. Weighted. Remember what I said about that? That's the higher of the 2, the top, 3.5. Do you remember what I said about Tara and our weighted GPAs? Everybody's got that. So that's not a problem at all. No one's going to miss Bright Futures at this school, because of GPA. The classes, don't look at it, forget it. Mr. Servin for years now has made sure we are more than compensated for those classes. The service hours, done. You have to have all those things to graduate from tier anyway. The only sticking point, if there is one, are the test scores. They're not easy. They're not impossible, but they're not easy. So for 100%, the students need to have either a 1330 on the SAT or a 29 on the ACT. Both. I'm sorry, either, not both, either. So when they take both, now you can choose. And the beauty of Bright Futures, that, believe it or not, even though they screwed over admissions, requiring testing, they allow students to get this test score all senior year. All seniors. So they may know that they're going to UCF. You may have already bought the sheets. They've got the dorm picked out. You're ready. And they can still take tests as late as June of graduation, senior year, to get this money. So our kids already graduated, and we've got maybe 30, 35 who are taking the ACT this weekend to try to either get Bright Futures or to bump up a level. And that's fine. That money goes to them. So they are almost all set except for that test score. Now, the good news is it's super scored, which means you at no point have to have a 1330 ever. You just, if you took it 2 or 3 times, have to earn the pieces to get there. And what I mean is this. Let's say you took the SAT twice. Let's say you took it August and December. In August, your English, your reading score was, something. In December, your math score was actually better. So now you can take the reading score from August and the math score from December and make a new super score. If that adds up to a 1330 or higher, it's yours. So that's why a lot of the kids now, they're not studying for an SAT from scratch. They're going, oh, well, I've done as well as I can in math. Forget it. I'm not going to get any more. I know they only study for their reading, and that's how they're going to get it. They're going to piece them together. And it's the same for the ACT. So you have all year to do it. And that's why this school is Bright Futures. Like we take the majority of the money that the state of Florida gives for Bright Futures. Every year they overfund it because not enough kids have it, and we're like, how's that a problem? So it's a really big deal here, because even if you don't stay in college, even if you don't go to the state of Florida, we really want you to graduate with that as an option. So if you're trying to decide if you should go to Duke, Chicago, and pay something, or stay at UF for free, that's a really, really good plan B that we really want to make sure that you have as the better option. So that second level, 75%, forget the GPA, forget the classes, forget the hours, done, done, done. Look at those test scores, at least a 1210 or a 25, automatic, boom, 75%, no essay, no project, you're not chosen, you're not picked, it's yours, it's yours. So that's pretty significant. It's good for 5 years after high school, meaning if you decide to take a gap year, or you join the military, or you're trying to convince Miss Vivian, I'm just not going to college, it's not for me, I still am going to make you do the Bright Futures application. That may be you now, but 5 years from now, you might decide to go back to FIU in 5 years. Cool. Your Bright Futures kicks in for the rest of college. So I really, really make sure everybody does this, because that's our thing. They worked for it, and it's good for all of college. You have to keep a 3.0 GPA in college. That's A's, B's, and C's. So yeah, we have had kids lose it because they partied too hard or decided class was optional. They lost it in college, but it's really hard to do that unless you try. Almost, I promise. I know I keep saying that, but we're so close. The Bright Futures application is a misnomer. I shouldn't call it that. It's actually called the Florida Financial Aid Application, the FFA, but it's used for Bright Futures, and it's used for 10 other scholarships. So that's why everybody's going to do it together in October. If you're not ready for Bright Futures yet, fine, no big deal. It'll kick in once you get those scores, but at least you're eligible for 10 other ones in addition to Bright Futures. So that's why we will take care of that together in October. 2 more, moving on. Money comes from the government. We got that. The state of Florida, woohoo. The college, the institution itself, that's where the majority of the money is going to come from. You're not going to have to nickel and dime yourself if the colleges you're applying to give them money from themselves. So the best example I could come up with is FIU. And this is why so many of our kids, even with lofty aspirations, amazing acceptances, great financial aid, stay at FIU. And it's because of this. So one of the FIU scholarships, and this is like other schools, it's just a great example, it comes from FIU itself. It's called the presidential. It's full tuition. Full. It's not automatically given. There's an extra application involved. There's an extra essay involved. The essay this year was if you could eat dinner with somebody, who would it be and why? So it's not crazy, but something to think about. And knowing that they're going to pick full tuition on that. So it's full tuition. Now follow me for a second. So if you're getting full tuition at FIU, which is about $7,000, you're also getting full Bright Futures, which is about $7,000. Now, if you're going to live at home, because this is Miami, your tuition is paid for, and now you still have $7,000 floating around from Bright Futures. Where does that go? It comes back to you, right back to your pocket. So many, and that's not even including money from the government. I'd even talk about a Pell Grant or work study, not loans, anything else. So we have so many kids, and I don't, again, Miss Cardenas can jump in, Miss Vega, our counselors are so used to kids struggling with decisions. Do I go away to college and pay something, whether it's a lot or a little, or do I stay here, local, live at home, and make 5 to 10,000 a year? And I'm not saying that to throw it out like
true.
this. It is.
That's absolutely true. The girl from John Hopkins, she only had to pay $5,000 a year, but FIU gave her so much money that she decided to stay.
Down.
And
And you may wince at
money.
that, yeah. And what she's mentioning is, I have the goosebumps again, May 1st is a deadline. We'll talk about this down the road, but May 1st, the seniors have to decide. And there were 2 seniors in particular this year that took all of April to decide. One of them had all but just under a full ride to Johns Hopkins. She had to pay a couple thousand.
Mhm.
Another one
Right.
was going to have to pay a little bit more, 10 or 15 to Georgetown. And they were struggling. One parent didn't want them to go away. So there are other factors involved. Either way, both had the presidential, they had 100% bright futures. They had some money from Pell Grant coming in. They were comfortable living at home. Their family life wasn't, I don't want to say bad enough, but they weren't ready to, jump ship just yet. So both just recently, Mariana and Giselle decided to stay at FIU. And though some people, you turned down Georgetown, you turned down Johns Hopkins, and we're not even talking loans, when the reality is that they're going to end up pocketing about $12,000 after their tuition and books is paid for. After that, now granted, that's money they could have used for a dorm or apartment someplace else, but they're not. $12,000 a year times 4 years, just under $50,000. They're making money to stay at FIU, which is still a very good.
Right.
So yeah, it's I know it's strange to hear that story, but it is so common. But I bring that up because that's an institutional scholarship. That money came from FIU. So as you're coming up with these schools, you need to know what type of money these colleges give and what you have to do to get it. UF has those same scholarships, but they don't have applications. They just gift them to the top applicants. UCF has an amazing scholarship program. It's called Pegasus. No application, they just gift them. So oftentimes these kids will come back like, Miss, I got an extra 7,000. I don't know what it is. Is it a sham? It's called Pegasus. And I have to be like, you didn't Google, but yes, congratulations. It's on top of your bright futures. It's in addition. All of these pieces are in addition to each other. So when I say the best college with the best money, that's what I mean. We're not talking about loans here. We're not talking about mortgaging your house. Or every now and then I have parents who are like, well, my younger son isn't college material. I can steal his prepaid. I think, oh, you just picked your favorite kid. This is crazy. That's not the situation we're talking about. So there's a lot of money coming from the college. And then finally, truly finally, money comes from private scholarships. And I put that last for a reason. There's billions of them, billions. So when kids come to me or when they say, my mom's bugging me, I have to apply for scholarships. What do? This is what you mean. But I'm here to tell you, I don't like to see kids waste their time on anything. There are billions of scholarships. Wendy's, Best Buy, Kohl's over here, Town and Country, the Falls Mall, Simon Group, they have their own. Terra PTSA has their own. We're not talking $10, $15, $20,000. We're usually 1,000 here, 500 there, 1,200 here. Great. Little bits help all the time, of course. But you can become inundated, overwhelmed very quickly with doing 20, 30, 40 scholarship applications, essays where you're competing with tens of thousands of other kids nationally. So Wendy's has $1,000 every year. That's 4,000. That's awesome. They give 1,000 scholarships. They're competing with almost 100,000 kids. So I don't want to see a kid give up an FIU scholarship or a Georgia Tech essay for a scholarship for half tuition when they're stuck on obsessed because their parents are saying, but write that Wendy's essay. Odds are someone's got to win. I get it. But odds are it's not going to be you. So I need them to balance the private scholarships with the reality of the bulk of the money that comes from the college, bright futures, and then maybe if you qualify, your federal aid, which comes from your income, not just merit. So yes, it's a thing. And that's why I end with this, because there are a couple of websites I want to leave you with. You can lose your mind looking at college scholarship websites, but fastweb.com, it's a sketchy name. It's just a sketchy name. It is legitimate. It is free. You answer a bunch of questions. It spits out an email every single day of the scholarships that they're eligible for. So they don't have to search. They don't have to look through pages and pages and be like, there's one. Oh, I'm not blonde. Next. No, it will only give them emails of scholarships that they're eligible for. So, and it pulls from all of the other sites. So why look at 10 scholarship sites? Look at FastWeb. They email you and they pull from all of the other sites. So that's a really big deal that I want to kind of leave you with. And then finally, a few slides of some private ones that I know our kids get. So I'm only bringing these up because these are Terra strong scholarships. I'm not just telling you to look at them. It's because we have kids every single year. The first one's called Posse. I know it says June 1st. but that was to the school. I'm only allowed to nominate 15 kids total for this. Right now I have 7. So I still have a number of applications that I can use. Anyway, it's a full tuition scholarship to those 6 schools. If you see, it's only those schools: Syracuse, Pomona, Hamilton. They're smaller selective institutions. They're probably 70 to 80 grand a year, full tuition. So it's a scholar every year. We have a couple of posse winner every single year. So it's a really big deal for some kids. I've never heard of that school before. I think, well, that's on you, not the school. Those are pretty selective schools, very expensive. Questbridge is another top scholarship coming up over the summer. It's income based, so you do have to be lower income and you have to be absolutely brilliant. You have to be the top kid, low money, and it's a full ride. That's not just tuition, that's dorm, that's food, that's laptop, that's coat, that's gloves, to some of the top schools in the world. Questbridge, our Terra winners have gone to MIT, this year's Notre Dame, Stanford, Harvard, to a Duke, UPenn, U Chicago. So big deal, but it's over the summer. So I include those because they're private, but we win them every single year. Okay. And then lastly, the College Board, I started with them, I'll end with them, has their own scholarship. So if they're making you pay to take the SAT, AP, send the scores, the least they can do is give scholarships, and they do. So as they're walking you through the college process, your students, again, already have access to the site. Look at the steps that they're including. If you simply build a college list, what I just talked about for half an hour, just list a couple of schools on Big Future, the site we went through, boom, $500. They'll pick them. You're entered in a lottery. If you use Khan Academy to practice, you're entered into a lottery. And every month I get a list of 2 to 3 kids. They'll say, oh, by the way, Yvonne Vega, $500 for the Build Your College list. And it's just a check that goes to your college. So if the kids do all 6 steps, at the end of the year, in June of senior year, they pick 25 winners for $40,000. That's pretty amazing. It's hard to get, I'm not going to pretend. But again, the monthly steps along the way for doing things you should be doing anyway, it's really cool. This is the first year they've done it. So I'm thrilled that they finally are giving money back. But it's something they should do anyway. It helps track their college process. May as well do them. And hey, worst thing that comes out of it is you get an extra $500. That's free dessert. That's Chick-fil-A for 2 months at UF. So every little bit counts. And I end with that. So it's a lot. I get it. It's recorded. You can listen to me all day long, all summer long. I'm on Scoir. Send me messages. Please add yourself. There's a lot to do, but with planning and breathing, all of this very quickly will come to fruition. And next time this year, you'll know where they're going. It's a pretty big step. With that said, any questions?
Ms. Vivian, would you still like me to present my my website?
Okay, we'll wait till after the questions, Camila, and then yeah, we'll bring that up, I promise. Oh,
I have a question about school reporting.
okay,
So-
great.
You piqued my interest when you said if you took the ACT and SAT, you can choose to submit even only the ACT. I got a really good score on both. I actually got a perfect score on the ACT. So I'm wondering,
Wait, slow down, back it up. You said you got a 36 on the ACT?
Yeah.
Can we talk? Because I have to announce this, because one of the stories I didn't share is in 9 years of Terra history, nine. So that's just what, under 5,000 graduates? We have had 5 perfect ACT scores. You would be 6, and 0 perfect SAT scores. We've had perfect math, perfect reading, but never the combination. So 1, I need you to come to me because I'm staring at a wall of frames where I will frame your subject score in gold and add you to my story. But 6 perfect ACTs and 0 SATs. I'm not telling you ACT is easier. That would be wrong. But you figure out the stats. So congratulations. And now whatever you ask me, I'm going to tell you to stop. Don't test. Don't do anything. You send that ACT score in, default, don't look at SAT, don't hit the button, don't pay $12. Why? Why bother? They can only use 1 score for admission. What were you going to say?
So even if I got a 1500 plus on the SAT.
It's not as good as the 36.
Okay.
It's not as good. So when a decision, and having spent some time at some selective admissions places, they can only see 1, they can only use 1. So even if you're like, well, I'm so perfect in both, they can only use 1. And I am here to tell you, your 36 is what they're going to use. Nice job. Come see me.
I'm going to blow your brain again. There's actually a second student in here who I believe got a 36.
Adam. Is it Adam? I think he's on. Yeah, he's our number 5. So now you'll be number 6. I've included him in our stats. Very good. We're still looking for that SAT. I'm going to frame that. I'm going to blow that one up poster side. What's that?
I know people who have got close.
Close. We've got a lot of close.
Yeah.
I'll say that. And the one student we have at Stanford missed one question, but
No.
wasn't perfect, but it's okay. It's okay. So that's a pretty darn good score. Congratulations. But yeah, just you click that SAT button, just make it disappear, delete it forever. Good job.
Thank
To
you
both
so
you
much.
and Adam on this presentation. Very good.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, anything in the chat? Okay, then I would like to finish with a quick little reminder from one of our current students who has put together a very helpful site to assist seniors, not just on the college process, but on everything from classes to the community service. So since we have her as a resource, I want to make sure she can explain all that she's able to do. So Camila?
Hi, so my name is Camila, and I have a website called Terraways. I've presented to, I know a lot of people here are parents, but I've presented.
Can you share it, Camila? If I make you host, are you able to log in? You promise
Yeah.
that's the only thing you're logging into though, right? It's recording.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually have to wait 3.
That way you can share it and walk them through it because it's pretty amazing.
Thank you. So let me open that. So this is my website. I've been working on it the entire year, and I've kept adding to it. It's like my baby. I'm obsessed with it, and I work on it every single day. So to my website, it's grown with me, and now we have a section for college essay help and college application help. So as your kids are going, I know a lot of people here are parents, or you are going through the application process. I've gone through what's helped me and what's helped other students because I use a lot of surveys. I offer community service hours, and it's basically student resources. It's like more micro of what you can be doing at each moment and things that are very accessible. So like, for example, like instead of having to scroll through, say like a page to find a resume template or a brag sheet, I post them here. I post, for example, this should be, it should hopefully load. So like a college application tracker. So things of that kind, I'll take care to post them to make sure that everything that's useful to me that I can find, I post it also for my fellow students. And also like things like, should I send my AP scores, things that I go ask Miss Vivian, and then I synthesize information from different sources that we're getting a more holistic answer. And additionally, things like that, and different guides that I find on Terra and on different websites. Additionally, I'm very invested in the National English Honor Society. So I'm helping guide the essay managing team. We're essentially helping students plan, edit, and revise their college essays. So it's a way for students to connect with this team. We're thinking 50 essays outside of our club where they can, where our team, they're trained by our sponsor, Mr. Barreto, to review these college essays, and we'll help you through every step of the way. So I post things like that, the Common App prompts and online articles to help you. So thank you for listening. That's about it. And if you do want to get community service hours before, I also post your community service projects too. That's a big part too. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Camila. I know. So she's basically done what
Awesome.
we've always wanted to do together in our head, but it takes 15 people to do what she has for this year.
Thank you.
Excellent work, Camila. Excellent work.
Thank you so much. I love doing it.
All right. Any final words, Mr. Servin? How great is this group, huh?
No, fantastic job, Vivian. We're so lucky and blessed to have you. I
Oh,
really appreciate that. It's a blessing and it's an honor. Thank you.
you could talk anytime. I'll keep you unmuted then if that's how that works. Thanks. Like I said, this will all be recorded so you can listen to me in slow motion, which is probably necessary. It'll be on our YouTube channel, and I'll send the link out through both Scoir and on the college advising page. But in the meantime, you have all of us here to help you use us. And good luck.
Thank you, Miss Vivian.
Thank you, Miss Vivian.
We'll stay a little bit if you have any
Thank you.
questions.
Thank you so much.